over to our next keynote speaker. Our next keynote speaker is Amy Ridley. She's the Australia Youth World Championship at Goalball representative. Oh, muddled that up. She's in the Australian Girls Choir. She's a Year 12 student, so having an interesting 2020, no doubt. And she's involved in everything from academics, athletics, and music, including piano. She has a school leadership position, she's an inter-school debater, and she has just received an unconditional offer to study combined law and psychology at Macquarie University next year. Amy, if you're there and ready, over to you.
Perfect. Well, that just made me sound a lot more exciting than I am. But my name is Amy Ridley. I'm 18 and I'm currently facing the final stretch towards the wonderful HSC exams. And today my plan is to impart to you my guide on surviving teenagehood as a vision impaired person. So, where to begin? When I was 6, I failed my first ever test. A group of orthoptists came to my primary school to complete an eye test screening for all kindergarten students. And suffice to say, I was marginally below where I needed to be. And this sent me on a whirlwind path of endless doctors and referrals that would eventually lead me to a diagnosis of bilateral panuveitis. And this is where I'll slow down because it's highly likely that none of you have heard of uveitis before. So what is it? Uveitis is an autoimmune disease that results in inflammation of the eye. And panuveitis basically means that I drew the short straw and managed to get the version that affects all parts of the eye. But then I just kept getting unlucky. I faced countless medical complications with everything from uveitic glaucoma to macular edema to cataracts to exudative retinal detachments to vitreous hemorrhages and to retinal tumours. And I've been treated for it with everything from extensive eye drops and tablets to low-dose chemotherapy, monthly biologic drug infusions, eye injections, eye implants, and over 40 procedures. Fun, which has left me with restricted visual fields and a visual acuity in my right eye of somewhere less than 260 and minimal functional vision in my left eye. As such, I am a cane user, despite how hard I tried to fight it. And I probably could have saved you all about 60 seconds of your lives and a bunch of medical mumbo jumbo for just saying that my eyes are a bit dodgy with a capital D. And in the middle of all this, I was faced with a transition from primary school to high school, childhood to adolescence, which for me was the ideal opportunity to redefine myself as anything other than a sick blind girl. So I'm going to share with you my approach to tackling teenagehood, and I'm going to split it into the 3 key areas of my life. So academics and schooling, social connectivity, and sport. So let's start off with the biggest chunk of teenagehood, high school. I personally have spent my schooling in a mainstream public school classroom with varying highs and lows in terms of unnecessary adversity. In fact, I was facing unintentional disability prejudice before I even was enrolled at my school. At the conclusion of year 6, I sat an exam for the gifted and talented class, or stream, at my current high school. And upon securing a place in the class, my mum received a phone call from the deputy principal suggesting that an extension class would probably be too fast-paced for a person with a vision impairment. My mum promptly rebutted that deputy, and I would go on to make it my mission to disprove that assumption. And although I feel more than slightly stuck up saying it, I have been reasonably successful in this mission, having received Outstanding Academic Achiever in my cohort from years 7 to 11 and various academic merits and awards externally, including from Macquarie and Sydney Uni. But even then, I still struggle with some teachers who treat me like I'm a 5-year-old or who unintentionally discriminate to varying degrees. One of the things high school has taught me is that teachers aren't perfect. We have to remember that they are a cross-section of society, and just like in society, there will always be people who just don't get it. So take it as a practice run for real life. Call people out when they are out of line. Be diplomatic, be considerate, but make sure you're standing up for yourself and advocating for what you need. If you're not comfortable, get someone else to do it for you. For me personally, I have an excellent support structure at school, namely my two amazing vision itinerant teachers, my SLSO, and my friends who will back me up on pretty much anything. So keep standing up. Changing directions, I thought I'd share the assistive technology I use at school. So I currently use a Department of Education HP touchscreen laptop with a Department JAWS screen reading license to access the vast majority of content. I find that having touchscreen is super useful because I can't see my cursor. But unfortunately, the catch-22 is that touchscreen doesn't work with JAWS. So I'm very good at switching JAWS on and off depending on what I'm doing. I also have an iPad Pro supplied by my family and an Apple Pencil, which I use to write my maths through an application called Notability, which I heard mentioned before. Although I can't use this in my actual HSC exams, which is important to note. Writing in this form means that I can change the background colour and the pen colour so that I have better contrast in my vision. And it also allows me to zoom in on my previous lines of working. I also have a Braille Sense Polaris provided by the Department of Education, which is an electronic refreshable Braille display that functions independently as a laptop. And I can use it to read text or to do proofreading, etc. And finally, I access all graphs and diagrams for my subjects in Braille and tactile image form. Phew. So that's a lot to take in, but please ask questions to clarify if you need. So more specifically, where am I now? Well, I currently take Extension Maths, Advanced English, Economics, Legal Studies, and Biology. And based on my Year 11 results, I have been offered an unconditional offer to study my first choice of combined Bachelor of Law and Psychology next year, which means I can now stress and study less, and more excitingly, sleep more. And on this note, I just wanted to point out an opportunity through Vision Australia known as the VA Bursary, which can fund successful Year 12 applicants with a piece of adapted technology, such as a laptop, iPad, refreshable Braille display, to take to uni. It's a really good initiative to keep in mind, especially since we all know how much of a struggle it is to get technology funding through the NDIS. So now let's move on to social interaction. Personally, I approached Year 7 with the all-in approach. I joined everything, from choir to debating to student leadership to environment club. I know, I'm a nerd, but I did meet a ton of people and build really secure friendships and relationships that have lasted for the whole of high school. And when it comes to socializing, I have two game plans. The first is to always say yes. And the second is to build a mix of friendships equally within and outside both the visually impaired community and school. In my case, I'm involved with debating, school leadership and volunteering. Outside of school, I'm in the highest level of the Australian Girls Choir and have made heaps of friends from all over Sydney through this. And I also have friends in the visually impaired community through youth days at Guide Dogs of Vision Australia, as well as Blind Sports New South Wales camps and initiatives, and Goalball. As such, I have developed an extensive social base, which I know can be tricky to do, especially when you're permanently holding the eternal social block that is the cane. So keep saying yes to the opportunities that are there for you. And finally, let's have a look at sport. It is so beyond important that as visually impaired teens, we find a way to be active in order to foster both our physical and emotional well-being. We all know from health classes, the government's Active Kids budget scheme, and generally the recurring media recital of overweight and obesity rates for adolescents, just how important physical activity is as a teen. But like many things, it's made that little bit harder for us. We can't go for a run around the block for us by ourselves or independently to the gym safely. And many of us can't go out the back and throw an AFL ball without getting a nice tattoo of the ball on our face or taking out somebody else. What I wasn't completely aware of or didn't take an advantage of at a younger age was the number of visually impaired sporting opportunities there are in New South Wales. And as I know you've already heard from Murray today, I don't want to be too specific, but I want to remind you that there is something for everyone, whether it be para-athletics, para-cycling, para-skiing, blind and low vision tennis, blind and low vision futsal, blind and low vision cricket, goalball, golf, or even horse riding. What I will do is encourage you to give it a go. Register and become a member of Blind Sports New South Wales, or even just like the Facebook page for more information. Anything is a start. And I will acknowledge for a lot of visually impaired teams, a stigma exists around doing things exclusively for low vision people with low vision people. And I completely understand the inherent desire to be normal and to access everything normally. But I urge you to just give it a go, because not only will you have an opportunity to get fit, have fun, and be competitive in sport, but if you're like me, you'll also meet some of the best people and make some of your best friends. Personally, I picked the team sport Goalball, as you heard, which, if you haven't heard a lot of already today, there is a great A to Z sport video on it if you want to check it out further online. Personally, I enjoy Goalball as it's completely unique and kind of a bit addictive, but it's also 100% inclusive because everyone on court is completely blindfolded. For example, my younger brother, who's fully sighted, has represented New South Wales for this sport. So please join up and bring any friend you want. We're a little bit crazy, but I promise we're all nice. Otherwise, a great avenue to start is through the New South Wales Goalball for Schools program, where you can build a team of anybody in your school cohort and compete against other teams, both in your region and potentially across the state. So have a Google of Goalball for Schools or speak to your vision itinerant teacher about checking it out for you. I started Goalball in Year 9, so 3 years ago, and through it have represented New South Wales 3 times now, and Australia for the first time last year at the Youth World Championships, where we won a silver medal, which was pretty exciting. So there are countless opportunities to make social connections, both interstate and internationally. Anyway, with that crazy amount of information to take away, I just wanted to leave you with a more simplified message. My guide to surviving teenagehood has been as easy as one word: yes. And as cliche as that build-up sounds, it is exactly what you need to keep doing. Say yes to opportunities, to friendships, to avenues, because they have to lead you somewhere, right? And it's never going to be easy, and I know we heard Darren say it. The world isn't built for blind people, but we have to build our own world. So thanks.
Thank you, Amy. Sorry, just struggling with the buttons. That's fantastic. So when did you start learning Braille?
I started learning Braille. I lost my vision very quickly when I was 8. So I learned at the end of Year 2 for a couple of weeks and then through to the beginning of Year 3.
Right. And so did you find that was a slow process building? Have you found it's essential to your access to literacy? It's kind of interested, given the questions earlier from people, as to how essential Braille.
I personally think that it was a lot easier for me to learn Braille in Year 2 because I already knew how to read. So as opposed to when you learn in kindergarten, it's the same as learning to read, learning Braille. When you learn later, if you already know print, it's like a new code instead. So you just convert A's to the dot symbol that it's for. I think it is really important, and it's the reason that I've picked it up again now in high school, because there are lots of things that you do miss using screen readers, the commas and formatting. And I know I speak to lots of people at university with low vision or no vision who use Braille versus screen readers, and things like writing annotated bibliographies where you put the comma is really important for Harvard referencing, etc. You really need to have Braille available to check these things for formatting.
Yeah. Now, I've got to ask the COVID question. You are exactly what media talks about. You're in year 12. This is the year 2020. So what's the lived experience of COVID in year 12 as a VI student?
I think for me, COVID has also been added to the fact that because of the medical side of my condition, I am on immune suppressants, so I do have low dose chemotherapy and my infusions. So that's also been a factor. I'm not sure how to describe the actual lockdown because it was isolating in a way, but year 12 itself and the amount of work you have to cover was a bit of a distraction. It's just been trickier, I guess, because we've had all of the hard stuff about year 12, all of the exams, nothing got changed, trials is going ahead, HSC is going ahead, but things like graduation and formal were up in the air, or muck-up weeks and the ways they're expressed has all changed. So there's a whole lot of, I guess, the fun things we missed, like our last athletics carnival that other year groups have had. But I don't know about other schools. Our school year group, year 12, is pretty strong and connected. So we have a Facebook group and stuff. We've all stayed together, but it has been hard. And it has been pretty hard for me because I spent an extra 8 weeks in lockdown on top of what other people had. So when I got back to school, I think it was the first time I'd been excited to be at school since probably year 7.
Great. Now, you've said that one of the secrets of your success is just all in. If it's on, your hands up. And you've mentioned that even despite all your success, you still find some teachers, some people block you. I suppose my question is, we've heard a lot about how the system is built to work. How have you found that it has worked over the last 13 years of your education? Has it been there where it's meant to be? Are there times where you've had to drag the system in to help or find your own path?
I think that's a very broad question. I think that a lot has gone on, and my vision teachers are amazing. All of the ones I've had are amazing, but especially the ones that I've had in year 11 and 12 are always there to stick their hands up. And I think that, like I said, there's always going to be people, especially teachers, who just don't get it. And you keep fighting, but some things are never going to push, I guess. And that's something you have to come to terms with. Disability, so NESA provisions, is tricky because there are things that ideally I'm not sitting my HSC exams the way that I would sit them if I sat them at home. So I would be using Notability and an Apple Pencil for my maths exam if I could. And I wouldn't be using 3 screens for my English paper 1. But in terms of transition pathways, and I know the speech that was going on earlier, I did have all of that. So my vision teachers got me from year 6 into year 7 and the navigating around the school, and all that's good. Is just there is a lot there for you. You just have to be aware of the fact that you are going to have to advocate for yourself and fight a bit, because although the processes are there, they don't work perfectly. And I don't think they ever will, just because of the way society is set up, not just the education system. So keep fighting.
Sounds great. And so I suppose you mentioned transition. How about transition to uni? Is that something that has become part of your to-do list at the moment? Is that something in progress, or?
Yeah, it is on my to-do list, but HSC is higher on the to-do list. So I'm looking at, I know my vision teacher has booked a transition with the Disability Support Services at my university for next year after the HSC. So I'll go and do that. Yeah, I've been looking at the Vision Australia bursary, so what technology I'm going to need, how I'm going to split it, what am I going to have to pay for myself with my family, what am I going to get if I can on the Vision Australia bursary, what am I going to get through NDIS. So those are the things I'm thinking about. Yeah, I have travel cards and things already, so there's the fewer things are just navigating the university, speaking to the disability, and figuring out how I'm going to do the technology, but I have time. So.
Well, you're impressive and you're very organised. I am sure that you will have no problem navigating it with a gritting of teeth, perhaps. That is great. I'm very impressed. As a parent, you really helped me get a plan together. And I suppose the final one is, during that period when school was locked down, we've got all these technologies that everyone raves about. The world has changed. We've suddenly brought everything forward. Did you find these technologies accessible? Did you find you just felt you're in the same boat as everyone else, or did you feel that they were blocking you?
I think they were pretty good for me personally. So I still do have some remaining vision. So things like I had a teacher who would do for maths, she'd just screen record her lessons of her writing on her laptop. And for me, that was actually a lot easier because I had my laptop in front of me with her speaking and writing on her screen and it coming up for me. Whereas in class, I have to get my SLSO or somebody to read what's on the board or help me navigate the answers and solutions that are getting written up. So in that way, that was actually easier. There were things that were harder, especially tactiles, because I had things converted to tactiles, and it was trickier to get them during COVID because it was just more organisation from the side, from me and from the teachers themselves. But I think the connection was pretty good, being able to email. I still had access to both of my vision teachers and they were still dropping things off for me and getting me what I needed. So I didn't experience too much of a block. There's always going to be things that you can't do, but it wasn't too bad.
Well, Amy, from myself and from 100 other people who are on the line and anyone else who's going to watch the video in the future, thank you very much. You're a fantastic speaker and ambassador.